So we're so pleased to have you here. We'll call this meeting to order. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is kind of hidden there, but let's see if we can. How's that? Can you guys see it a little bit? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you for coming. We're really excited. This is a hearing. It's literally a hearing. We're here to hear what you have to say about the Betty Hudson property, which is located at 1 Old Bridge. I think everyone's excited because there's potential to make this a beautiful, beautiful spot in Simsbury and to enhance an already important tourist attraction, the Flower Bridge. So we're excited to hear what you have to say. What we're going to do is, because this is a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen, or appointed by the Board of Selectmen, we always do public audience first. So if anyone has something unrelated to the Betty Hudson property that they want to talk about, we can do that. Does anyone have any unrelated? Okay. Seeing none, then what we'll begin with is a brief presentation by Jeff Shea, accompanied by Mr. Hiram Peck, who's the Director of Planning, and I think I saw him here. Is he? There he is in the back. And we have Jerry Toner here, who's the Director of Parks and Rec. And Jeff Shea is our town engineer. And you're probably wondering why we have 3 staff people, because all of these are related. We're also going to be dealing with Public Works at some point because he does our building maintenance. So this is a multifaceted, you think it's an easy project, but it's multifaceted, multi-people are involved in it. So Jeff's going to proceed with the presentation, and then after that we'll go straight to ideas, inputs, comments. You'll have the ability to ask questions. Just a sec, Jer. And then we'll let everyone speak for about 5 minutes. Make sure we get to everyone. Anyone who wants to speak more, we'll come back to you. If we didn't, then we'll go through 5 minutes again. Anyone who wants to speak more, we'll come back to you. We'll go as long as you feel you have something to say. Jerry, question.
Why are there all those empty seats? Who would be there?
You. Oh, here?
Yeah.
Well, we got a little carried away. The members of the Open Space Committee are myself. I'm the chair, Lisa Heavener, Director.
Sure, I love being with you.
First Selectman. We've got Ferg Jensen, who is chairman of, he's on our planning committee and is chairman, right?
So, like, who's listening to it?
What do you mean?
People?
No. This is just a hearing. All the people, the way it works is we're not making any decisions today. We're hearing. The way it will work is open space. We'll listen to everyone. We'll have more opportunities to listen to people eventually.
Rely on Ferg to convey that?
Jer, I love you, but you're out of order. So we've got Ferg Jensen here from planning. We've got Don Rieger for conservation. And the way the process works is eventually we'll have a recommendation from the Open Space Committee to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen will be the ultimate decider on what we do, but we're going to be seeing tons of public input, lots of public audience. This is just the first hearing. You'll have many opportunities at all our open space meetings before the Board of Selectmen to give us your comments. You can write them. So this is just the very first step.
Karen, can I use this mic as opposed to this one? Because this one will carry a little better. Is that better?
Much.
Okay, good. Good evening. We've got a brief presentation here on the Betty Hudson property. As you know, the town acquired it back in November of 2014. I'll start quickly with some background information on the property. It's a 0.52 acre parcel. It abuts the Farmington River, Hop Brook, and the Flower Bridge, if you're not aware of it. Adjacent to the parcel is 1.8 acres of town-owned right-of-way, which is essentially Old Bridge Road. Now that we own the property, in essence, we don't need a public right-of-way there because we don't have to provide for private access from a public road. So we got to maybe think of it in terms of a larger parcel, in terms of planning. So it's just something to think about. It's presently served by public water, and it has an on-site sewage disposal system. Sanitary sewer and gas are available, but not being utilized by the property at the present time. And there is a fairly substantial timber retaining wall along the Farmington Avenue frontage of the property. This is an aerial view of the property. Oops. Not too good with this technology here. This is the actual parcel right here. This is Old Bridge Road, Hop Brooks over here, and this is the Farmington River, Flower Bridge. And this is the 1.8 acres I'm talking about that we own, but certainly is underutilized. The original building was, sorry, the original building was constructed in 1910. And the original building is actually the center portion of the structure. An addition, a major addition was completed in 1965, which included the garage on the western side of the building and the master suite above it. There was also an addition on the eastern portion. Anecdotally, I was told about it. I don't know when it was constructed. Most likely sometime in between the original and the 65 construction. Kitchen was remodeled in 2007. There's about 2,200 square feet of space, 9 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, primarily on the upper level of the first floor. There's a 2-car garage. It's heated by hot water oil-fired system with an exterior above-ground storage tank that was installed in 2011. It's got electric hot water, central air that was installed fairly recently. I don't know exactly when. And there's an 8x10 wood frame shed on the property. This is the so-called Western Addition, built in 1965, which includes the 2-car garage, the suite above, and sort of a connecting space to the left. This is the rear of the same piece of the structure, kind of looking north. The garage on the bottom, again, the master suite on the top. This is the original structure, kind of the middle of the building. Not a great picture, but just to give you a sense, basically where the front door is, that particular part of the property, or of the building. This is the rear. That kind of shows the chimney, I assumed to be part of the original structure. That part on the right, probably the addition, not sure when it was built. You can see it has a deck and a screened-in porch. Since this picture was taken, the screened-in porch has taken a hit from the heavy snow loads this winter, so that has collapsed. This is the building, between the building and the Farmington River, set of stairs that goes down to the rear of the property. It kind of steps down. The retaining walls to the left side of this picture. You can see the foundation is in pretty good condition there. This building has been flooded, and it doesn't show any signs of any structural damage from those flooding activities. This is the east yard, kind of looking from Old Bridge Road, looking to the south. The retaining walls on the right, buildings on, or actually on the left, buildings on the right. This is just a general picture from kind of the top of the timber retaining wall looking up towards Hop Brook, just to give you a sense of the property. And this is a picture from the opposite side of the Farmington River across the Flower Bridge, trying to get a picture of that wall. You can see Hop Brook to the left and Farmington River in the foreground. This is a couple of pictures of the interior of the building. This is kind of in the original portion of the building looking to the west to the newest addition. So that's the upper or the first floor looking towards that master suite. And this is just another picture looking north up. I believe this is in the original portion of the building. This is a view looking up Hop Brook from where we believe you could do kayak access fairly conveniently from the lower portion of the property. The property slopes from north to south towards the Hop Brook, and this would be the lower portion. The building condition in general and the maintenance requirements as we see them right now. The roof most likely would need to be replaced in 5 to 10 years. That would put it at 25 to 30 years old. Some of the masonry work needs repointing or reconstruction. Again, we haven't had it inspected by a mason, but there is some cracking in one of the major chimneys in the front of the building. Windows are single pane with storm windows, relatively old. The building would be needed to be retrofitted for handicap accessibility. Several of the floors are at different elevations. That makes it a little bit problematic for handicap accessibility, so it'd have to be reworked. in the interior. The doors probably are not of the proper width. The door hardware is probably not handicap accessible. And the bathrooms actually probably are not handicap accessible. We haven't really looked at them in detail, but they are relatively small. The utilities, the furnace and the hot water heater and some electrical service are in the basement of the building. That basement has periodically flooded to the point where the furnace has actually been taken out at times in advance of the flood event. Other general interior and exterior work would be required. Carpets are in tough shape. The place needs paint and paper. Fencing needs to be replaced on the top of the retaining wall. So there is work that would need to be done. If it was used as a passive park with no structure on it, you'd have typical maintenance requirements such as spring cleanup, weekly mowing, trimming, trash pickup, and of course, most likely a need for some kind of toilet facilities and trash barrels. In terms of zoning, the property is actually in the R15 zone. This was incorrect, and we missed it and caught it at the last minute. Doesn't really affect us in any way, but it is also in the floodplain overlay zone entirely. It presently is non-conforming. I believe that's still correct. Uses allowed in that zone are municipal uses, so us owning it and using it for municipal purposes is allowed. It is in close proximity to the Charette, the downtown center area, but not actually in it. The planning department does recommend that the site be considered as part of the Simsbury Meadow master plan, which is presently close to completion, I guess. It's under development. Should have brought my bottle of water. In terms of the site restraints, the property, as I said, is entirely within the upland review area for wetlands because of the size of the parcel. It's within 100 feet in either direction of the water courses or wetlands adjoining the property. The property is also in part in the FEMA floodway and entirely within the FEMA 100-year floodplain. Thank you. We actually had a surveyor go out and develop an elevation certificate for the property. The FEMA base flooded elevation in the area is 156.6 feet above the sea level. The lowest floor in the garage is actually below it by 4 or 5 feet. The main floor, the first floor, is 158.4 plus or minus in elevation, which is above the base flood. Our local zoning regulation actually requires the finished floor elevation to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. So it's slightly out of the requirement to meet the requirements for, say, a new structure by a few inches. In terms of floodplain regulations, what the regulations say that if you're going to do a substantial improvement to the property, then it has to be compliant with current regulations. Our floodplain, our flood manager has actually done an evaluation of the improvements done over the lifetime of the property and comparing that to the appraised value, and we have approximately $37,000, I guess, in credit that we could spend on the property before we would have to actually meet current regulations. It's not a huge, I guess, impediment to doing what we want there, in that we have fairly close elevations to the required finished floor elevation. So hopefully that makes some sense. I know that's a lot to swallow.
What do you mean by the 37,000 credit?
Yeah, in other words, a substantial improvement is actually defined by investing at least 50% of the value of the property into the property. That kind of triggers you to be in compliance with current regulations.
Does that include ADA?
Includes anything. It even includes demolition. So if you were going to take a building down and put a new building up, then you would lose the cost of that demolition.
And what value has been given to the property?
The value, I didn't bring it. I think it's, for the structure itself, I'm going to say it's around $100,000. I don't have that exact number, but it's basically based on the assessor's appraised value of the property. So to be in compliance with FEMA regulations, we would be required to do the following. We would have to elevate all the utilities above the base flood elevation +2, which would mean you'd have to raise the furnace, raise the hot water heater, and raise any electrical appurtenances above that elevation. Because habitable space as defined would be the only space that you could kind of live in and work in, we would lose the basement. There's a breezeway area of finished space that's fairly small that we would lose for habitable space. However, for access to the building, that is allowed under the FEMA regulations. So as long as we didn't have furniture and, uses out down there, we'd be okay with that. We'd also have to install flood vents to allow flood events to actually flow through the building by providing openings on either side of the building. So those would be the major things we would have to do if we had to meet that litmus test of substantial improvement, if we were investing more than 50% of the value of the building into the building. This is just a historical photograph we had in the files showing the flood event that occurred back in 2011 as part of the Hurricane Irene event. You can see that little pencil mark over there. It says high water mark. That was actually taken after the peak of the flood, so it actually was several feet higher than that. So the lower level got flooded out. Also, this property, just so people know, it's on a list called the repetitive loss list, which means that it has numerous occasions it has flooded with not a great loss, but several events. This is kind of cryptic, I know, but this shows you the FEMA, the official map. The property is down in this area. The blue represents the floodway. So this just skirts the building, just outside between the building and the river. This white area over here represents the 100-year floodplain. So you can see this property is well within the floodplain. River and the roadway actually also floods out as part of those events. So access is difficult during floods. Sorry about that. This is just a little better map. You can see the building in yellow. In this location, this is the edge of the floodway. This is the 100-year floodway, or floodplain. So the entire property is within that designated area. In terms of opportunities on the property as it exists, again, it has existing river access to Hop Brook. To the Farmington River, again, because the retaining wall kind of restricts access on that side because of the grade change, that's not available. You do have existing parking on the 1 Old Bridge Road public right-of-way in cul-de-sac. You have a full complement of utilities available to the site. And again, you also have that potential planning opportunity with the adjoining property that I discussed, the 1.8 acres. And I think one of the biggest opportunities is the view sheds of the river, brooks, and wetlands from the property. In terms of boat launches, there was a comment in terms of that we need another boat launch in town. We have several boat launches. And yes, we do have a couple of boat launches available, one at the Sycamore Park and one at Terriffill Park. Curtis Park, thank you. This site is approximately in the midpoint of those two parks, so it does kind of present a neat opportunity for riverfront or boat launch access. It also would reduce the demand at the crew boathouse site from the public side. And there is another site on the east side that's been used over the years, I guess, not town-owned. But the availability of that site, I'm not very clear on, but it does exist. What I did is we did get several comments, emails from the public and various groups. I kind of tried to summarize them in short form to show you what thoughts and ideas were put out there for consideration. I don't know if you want me to read them, but again, a nature park. The property would need removal of invasive species, trimming of trees. Someone suggested new plantings, obviously kayak and canoe access. General appurtenances or amenities like picnic tables, garbage cans, porta potties, et cetera, et cetera. Informational signage, possibly an open air pavilion. Handicap accessibility, that was thought to be important. Somebody recognized the limitations on parking. Somebody who didn't want any business use of the property. And a demonstration site for environmental stewardship was also mentioned as a possibility. In terms of active uses, not as many thoughts and ideas, at least in writing. I've heard a lot of possibilities verbally, but I didn't want to be presumptuous in terms of how I characterize those. So a natural environmental center and a boathouse. This is an interesting sketch provided by one of Mrs. Lombardi, whereas there's a couple of possibilities of maybe demolishing a portion of the house and retaining a portion and repurposing the garage floor as I guess a patio area, and possibly adding some restrooms to that patio area. And that's basically it. The next steps as we see it is review public comment gathered at this meeting. And I guess the Open Space Committee would take those under advisement and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Maybe have another opportunity for public comment and get their approval on a final plan. Once that plan was developed, again, we would commission an architect or a landscape architect for the plans for the properties, schedule a joint meeting with various committees, establish the budget and the priorities, identify the permit requirements, which probably would be done at the same time as we considered budget and priorities, and complete construction documents for phase 1. And that's my presentation.
Again, thank you for that presentation. I'd like to recognize Jerry Toner, if you could stand, who helped with this presentation. He's Director of Parks and Rec, and Hiram Peck, who's our Director of Planning, who also helped with the preparation in the back there. As Jeff said, this is the very first beginning phase. Many people had the opportunity. Could I have a show of hands of who walked through the property when we had it open? Okay, so some of you have actually had the opportunity to walk through it. Who has been on the Flower Bridge so far? Anyone? All right. So we're all pretty familiar with the area. And like I said, this is the very first public discussion of it. We will have other discussions at Open Space. We will have discussions at the Board of Selectmen, and there will be discussions at the various committees. So we're just at the very beginning phases. And so right now, the purpose of this meeting is to hear from you. So when you get up to speak, if you could just please use the microphone, state your name and address for the town clerk who is over there, because we record it, and then we'll have a record of your comments that other boards and commissions will have the opportunity to look at. I'd like to thank and recognize SCTV for taping this, so anyone who was not able to make it here tonight will have an opportunity to hear what the public, some of the public thinks about it. And of course, if you weren't able to make it tonight, please feel free to send me, Jeff, the committee members, Derek Peterson and Helen Peterson, are also members of this committee, and they weren't able to be here.
It's actually going out live.
Ah, we're live. All right. So it's live and taped. And it will also be on, you can look it up on their website, too, if you don't want to watch it on SCTV. So lots of opportunities to hear. And so with that, we'll begin to hear from you. We'll start with you. John.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, friends. I'm John Carroll. I live at 31 Terry's Plain Road, and my backyard is the Farmington River. I have lived there, my family have lived there for now 40 years, and I am delighted, believe me, that we're sitting here tonight talking about an beautiful opportunity for a beautiful park at the Hudson House, as I call it. I am a retired remodeling contractor, and I worked on that house over 25 years, including the picture that you saw of the flood in front of the garage is probably 5 feet of water. And in 2007, that was the high water mark for a number of floods over the years and since. And what I did in the west end of the building, which is the garage and the structure above, which is a bedroom, bathroom, etc. What I did in the lower level, which is basically a concrete floor in the garage, a brick floor in the foyer, poured concrete foundation in the foyer area, and columns which we're not quite sure because they're brick faced or they're solid brick. There's absolutely no structural damage over the years of the west end of the building. None. Zero. That structure, in my view, is possibly, and it was listed in an open-air pavilion, if you eliminated the entire east side of the building and left that structure, either with or without the bedroom, bathroom area above that area, you would have, at a very low cost, a very nice open pavilion. So I hope that you will consider that thought. There are a number of options to use different sections of the building. So we don't need the whole thing as long as it's not a residence. So think about that. Think about, to me, the opportunity to have what the Charette folks said when they came here: we have ignored the river as an asset. This is a tremendous asset because we have a boat and kayak traffic every single day from, I would say, mid-April to mid-October, if later. And these folks are people that are coming down the river who would stop here, take part in the restaurants, the new structures as they develop on Ironhurst Boulevard. It's just magnificent. So give it all some thought, and certainly I hope we can go forward with a very nice park. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Anyone at all would like to speak on what we do with? Yes, Dave.
The Farmington isn't the Thames. I'm Dave Ryan, 20 West Ledge. The Farmington, yeah,
I need your address.
20 West Ledge Road, West Simsbury. Anyway, Farmington River isn't the Thames. But along the Thames River, if any of you have gone up and down there are boathouses that are really clubs, spaces where they can have events coincident with boat races. And it seems like if we want to make more use of the river, that's one of the things we might think about copying.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? I know all of you out there are lovely people and are opinionated. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Beinstein from 26 Fairview.
Can you spell your last name?
Yes. Beinstein.
Thank you, Bob.
It's like Einstein with a B on the front. But I don't claim the lineage. So, okay, these are just some random thoughts as I watched Jeff walk through the presentation. You know, first, it seems like there's a lot of repair work to do to make this thing a public venue. There's a lot of choppiness in the floor plan. I mean, my gut, strictly gut, is it, by the time we add up the things we have to move around to stay above high water mark, we're going to be over 37K, and we're going to trigger a bunch of requirements to do more work. So, you know, I'm not going to pass judgment on whether the structure should stay, the structure shouldn't stay, but I think that's something we really have to evaluate as a town, how we invest in it. I really like the ideas of public access, public good for Simsbury. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of, I do a lot of work in civil sustainability space. As climate changes, as water level change, we're seeing a lot of information about learning to live with water. So I would urge the committees, as you walk through this and figure out what you want to do there, whatever we design needs to be something that is designed to flood, is designed to have water in it and then recede. We lose the use of it while it's there, but we don't lose the function. And then I'll add this one, this idea of commerce, and I agree business shouldn't be there, but connecting to the town, I think, is wonderful. We should think about things like the assets we have and redeploying some things. So if we make it a public park, if we put a gazebo, maybe we put a Simsbury bike station in there so that people that land a kayak that have come from somewhere else can bike up to a restaurant. Just find ways to connect it to the town so we get this public good out of it. So I'll have more to say later, I'm sure, but that'll do.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next speaker. All right, Flower Bridge people, I know you're out there. Let's hear what you're thinking.
No, I,
Jan Lintner at 22 Masako. And Lintner. And I'm with the old Drake Hill Flower Bridge, and because we spend so much time there, and Betty was a longtime member of the bridge, we're delighted that the town has this property, and we feel like it really helps complete the bridge. So most of our ideas, which we have given to the town, have been incorporated in the presentation. I think we see it primarily as a nature and keeping it as natural as possible, and being able to use it for education. We do have a lot of weddings on the bridge. I think that those could be encouraged more if there were opportunities that if it rained, they'd have something that could protect them from that. So perhaps that could be part of the consideration of what's done with the property. I think the biggest concern probably that we on the bridge have is that we like the idea of have boat access for canoes and kayaks and that to the river, but we would not like to see trailers parked along the road. So I think if there's some way that trailers would need to be somewhere else, because that road into the bridge is not that wide, and while it could be widened, it would be I think the trailers would be in the way. And there are a lot of people who bring their elderly parents and handicapped people who come to the bridge because it's very nice for them that the boxes are right at eye level, so they get a lot of value walking up, and so they need a lot of car access and then to be able to take wheelchairs and the walkers and that from the bridge.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? You know, this is like total free fall. We want to hear it. It doesn't have to be exactly what you want. It doesn't have to, just give us any idea you're thinking about. All right, Alan.
Alan Needham, 2 Basswood Lane, Needham, Needham. Yep. 2 Basswood Lane. Okay. I think access to the river and hopefully some type of boat launch is really important. If you've never paddled down the river, you don't realize how beautiful it is. The first time, it was my wife and I's second date, as a matter of fact. We went down the river. She ate strawberries, I paddled. And one of the things we felt like, we could have been in Colorado, we could have been anywhere. You wouldn't know you were here. The banks are on either side of it. It is beautiful. You see wildlife that you don't see in other places. If you want to protect the river, if people are interested in protecting the quality of the river, you have to get people invested in it. And they're invested in it when they can see it, when they can sit in it, when they can play in it. That's how you protect the river, is by having people have a vested interest in it. So I hope that there's some way to make it some kind of boat launch. When we paddle on the river, we strap our canoe to the top of the roof. We bring our canoe strapped to, we don't need a trailer. It's on the boat. You could deny trailers, I think, and still have a lot of people have access to the river with canoes and kayaks. I would like to see it, I'd like us to be very aggressive about the use of this. The fact that there are other boat launches has nothing to do with this. This is downtown. And as we increase the density of who lives here, we have more citizens packed in there, there'll be more and more need to get to the river. And you can't get there now, unless you go to the Payne's Boathouse. If we could have a vendor there, I'd love to have it. So kids, teenagers have a place to go. They can rent a kayak for a couple of hours, bring it back. You can go both ways on the river. You don't have to go just downstream. The current is quiet enough that you can go both directions. Maybe even have a vendor interested enough in selling, maybe Foster's Ice Cream wants to sell ice cream there in the summer. I would like to see an outdoor patio. I'd like to have some enclosed area. I'd like to see it available for events. Maybe you rent it. You have a small party that you want to do. And again, access to the river, some place for kids to go, something to do. If we do it right, it's going to be one of those character things that defines this town. The Flower Bridge defines the town. By the way, it should be paired with the bridge in every way possible. It should be thought of as one thing. The Pinchot Sycamore is a character thing. The bridge next to that is a character thing. This could be a character thing. I just want to see people use the river, protect the river, yes, but let's use it. You protect it by using it, be invested in it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shireen Wassel, and I am co-chair of the Flower Bridge. Yes, Sharene Wassell. I do a lot of spelling of my name. I should remember that. I'm at 2 Ryan Circle, by the way. So Deej McKay and I are co-chairs of the Flower Bridge, and it's quite an honor to be co-chair of the Flower Bridge. I'm very, very proud of that. And we spend so much time down there that when we heard the Betty Hudson property was coming available, we were thrilled, and we got together and brainstormed a lot of ideas. And I have to give a lot of the credit to Jan Littner, because she and Deej mostly came up with a whole bunch of these ideas, and we submitted this plan to a lot of the various boards in town. But since some of you may not have seen this, and I don't mean to be repeating some of what was done in the presentation today, but I do want to read a few of the ideas that we've submitted to the various boards in town. Generally, a place to connect with nature and history, to access the river with canoes, kayaks, and rowboats. A place to stop on a trip, to boat, bike, or hike. A place to just simply view birds, animals, fish, and flowers. To use native trees, plants, and shrubs that are already there. Work on the riverbank restoration. Improve and maintain the area's ecology. Perhaps have more picnic tables down there. I know if I go down there every day of the week, people are down there picnicking. It's wonderful to see. Additional benches, a bike rack, seating rocks, bathrooms and porta potties, birdhouses, a visitor logbook in a weatherproof housing area. I think that's probably most of the ideas that we had that are similar to what has already been said, but I thank you for considering these ideas for the future. Thank you.
Yes, in the back.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Some little bird did so. I'm Alexander Brash, like the adjective, and I'll give you a card later with an address. But I'm the president of the Connecticut Audubon Society, and as I said, somebody invited us. I certainly wouldn't project any ideas, but many of these obviously directly overlap with exactly what we do, which includes, facilitating access, public access, both bikes and boats, and a lot of environmental education and restoration and becoming a community place. So I really just came here to listen, but I certainly would be happy to hear from any and all in particular if there's interest going forward in a, public-private partnership, period.
I just want to say one thing. Whatever you knock down, save the little shed for us.
Save the shed.
Our cars are the sheds right now. We have brooms and shovels and you name it, so please save the
Heard
shed.
that comment in spades?
Okay,
Hear ya.
thanks. Good.
Okay, Linda.
Linda Schofield, Schofield, Field, 3 Ryan Circle. And lots of great ideas. I just add one little brief thing, and that is, if we do decide to keep the building, I'd love to see us try to come up with a concept, and it might work with the Audubon Society or the Farmington River Watershed Association, to make this an educational center, about the river. We could be the place you go to for kids, for people of any age, to learn about river ecology, wildlife, the birds that live on the river, the fish that live in the river. There's an opportunity to make kind of a classroom, and maybe it's something that is available to multi-organizations out there on a rental basis, that the town maintains it, or maybe an organization like Farmington River Watershed Association would even want to locate there. But I just think it's an opportunity to have sort of a Roaring Brook kind of center right here in Simsbury and help people learn about the river environment that we're lucky enough to have right in the center of our town. And I do like the ideas that I've heard, and I just would echo the notion of not necessarily ruling out all businesses. I wouldn't want like lots of major commercial stuff there, but the idea of being able to rent a kayak or a canoe, because not everybody happens to own their own, I think is a business worth considering having there, because it'll give people access that they wouldn't otherwise have. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry.
Thanks. Hi, Chris. Jerry Lintner, Lintner. I live with that very beautiful woman at 22 Misako Street here in town. And this is actually something that hadn't really, there are 2 beautiful women there. I only live with one of them. So, but it did occur to me, part of what I don't really understand or have an insight to is what liability the town ends up with. And I know that's a big part that will, influence decisions that are made. A suggestion I had made at one time that it be called Betty's Beach and that clothing be optional. A lot of people, I thought, nature and everything, we're trying to promote that. And I'd still advocate that. But part of what I was concerned about, we've had at different times a range of opinions on young people's use of the Flower Bridge. Like, I think it's great when they jump off and they go down there, but now we call the police on them, because there's like a liability. The amount of damage they do to the flowers is very small. However, when this becomes town property, I would imagine there then transfers a liability. So if we make it like a Betty's Beach, which I would be in favor of, you get in the water, the kids get in the water now. Either you have to make a conscious effort to prevent that, Or Jerry gets stuck with the responsibility of, are there lifeguards there? So I don't know. I think it'd be great. People are going to go in the water whether you want them to or not. And I'd be in favor, but not if it's going to be an abhorrent cost to the town and put us in a position of liability. The man never ages, but this would probably cause him to go to the nursing home. So, thanks.
Thanks, Jerry. Is there anyone else who'd like to?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In one of the graphics you put up, Jeff, there's the Flower Bridge down the roadway that goes out to Drake Hill. Between Drake Hill and the roadway, there's a parcel, it's kind of a weirdly shaped. Who owns that?
It's town-owned.
Is there, have you guys talked about, yeah, that one right up there, have you talked about this? I mean, I really like what I've heard a couple times, that this should be a cohesive, inclusive plan for all these properties. It shouldn't be like parcel, 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 parcel. This is all part of the same space. So I guess I just wanted to ask if you guys were thinking of these as one.
Yeah, actually, after the Simsbury master planning process started, somebody made a point that, this should be considered as part of that planning process. So we have incorporated that at some level. And sure, Hiram, you want to say a bit? Go ahead. Getting tired of me.
Sure. Hiram Peck. I think Irene knows how to spell my name. As Jeff said, we do feel strongly that this should be considered part of the whole Simsbury Meadows master plan concept. We don't have any specific ideas, and we're more than happy today to hear what people have to say about it and how it should fit into the whole process. We do think that there's a tremendous potential here, but I think, as Jerry just mentioned, there are certainly questions with regard to what it would cost the community to do some of these things, and so there's going to be a definitely trade-off. There's no question about that. But one thing that we are adamant about, at least I am adamant about, I can't speak for any of the commissions, I want to be careful about that, is that it ought to be considered part of the whole riverfront, that some of the things that are there already, there is a boat launch there now, status of that, the use of the river, hiking trails along that whole area are something that we need to consider carefully. And as Jeff said too, we're working on that master plan right now. I'm not sure the exact time frame, but it's coming along, so sometime this summer and probably into the fall we'll begin to sort of take shape in terms of what that looks like and what could happen along that whole area. Obviously, we're very concerned with, as the Conservation Commission and Wetlands Commission is, with regard to any potential impact on water quality. But we're also very interested in what the recreational potential is for that area as well, as Linda mentioned. So there are lots of things that could happen there. We're more than happy to hear what your ideas are about them. But we are make sure that we want to consider it all as part of that whole process.
I have a question about the property that we were talking about. Is it in the floodplain too, and what are the limitations on what you could or couldn't do on that parcel?
Well, the answer is that if money is no object, you can do whatever you want. And I don't mean to be smart about that. I'm serious. As Jeff's slide pointed out, if we make improvements to 50% or more of the property, which is a very low figure in this particular case, it doesn't take much to spend that amount of money, then you need to bring it into compliance with the FEMA regulations, floodplain regulations. In addition to that, the Wetlands Agency has regulations as well. They're going to want to see permits and things for anything that might happen there as well. So again, not to be funny, but depending upon what the town's sort of taste for spending money is, it could be almost anything. Certain things would require that it be brought into conformance with the flood regulations, federal flood regulations, which we don't have a lot of control over. I would say this, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, we had a preliminary meeting with the DEP, FEMA people just a little while ago, and I would think it's safe to say that they're very appreciative of the fact that we had a sort of a meeting with them, and I think that they were willing to accept some of the discussion that we had. There was no you can't do this, no, you can't do that. I think they were very receptive to the concepts that we talked about. So just want to let you know we're willing to consider anything, and any good ideas always accepted, and I certainly don't have them all, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, Sally. I just have. Take the mic.
without a mic.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, that's okay. Sally Rieger, 9 Stodmore Road. It's R-I-E-G-E-R. S-T-O-D-M-O-R. There's no E on the end. You're welcome. So my question is, you know, if there were a building on that, when the building was on that property, does anybody know what they had to pay annually for flood insurance? Because if any organization or anybody were thinking about using the building, the cost of flood insurance every year would be part of what the expense is. So is that something we know?
Typically, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, please. Typically, what happens is what people pay for flood insurance is between them and their insurance companies, unless they have a federal policy. I can tell you this, though, that ever since Katrina and some of the other storms that we've experienced in this country, FEMA has been very aggressive about increasing flood insurance rates. There's some acts in Congress called Bigger Waters, believe it or not, and Bigger Waters says that our flood insurance rates are going to increase at about 20% a year for the next 5 years. Now, there's some reluctance or some resistance to rolling that back a little bit, but I can tell you certainly that if structures remain there and things remain there that need to be insured, there's no question that the amount of scrutiny that it will get from the town's insurance policy and premiums will probably be higher than they are right now.
Hi, my name is Zelene Sandler. It's Z-E-L-L-E-N-E. Sandler, S-A-N-D-L-E-R. I'm not a resident of Simsbury, but I'm the president of the Hartford Audubon Society. And I think what the folks that 22 Runda Lane, Runda, R-U-N-D-E-L-A-N-E in Bloomfield, right on the border of Simsbury, near Wade's. I just want to say, well, a lot of the ideas presented here by the Flower Bridge people, I think we will be fully in concert with, especially creating birding habitat and native plant species. We currently do lead field trips in Simsbury. We're going to have a woodcock watch at Nodbrook Wildlife Management Area coming up, not too distant future. And this would present us with an even better place, or a different habitat, I should say, for birding. So I think we will support you in this effort. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment?
Can I make another?
Of course. John.
Thank you. If I may, I want to use this. Is this on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. In talking about the structure as it exists now, okay, let me have that.
Stick on the picture. It's a red button on the top.
Okay. This part of the building is the two-car garage, which I made. I'm sorry?
Step over here.
Oh, okay, sure.
Can't see what you're pointing to.
Sure. This part of the building, including that part, which I call the foyer, as I said, is concrete and brick and arranged in such a way that floodwater drains out of the walls. And there have been several floods since, not as bad as the one in 2007, but everything does that. It's done it several times. And what I'm saying is that the structure that is already there will stay there in its form for a very long time. Linda Schofield's suggestion about a classroom, for example, we could consider the upper floor of this which is currently approximately the same floor space as the garage in a couple of different rooms, including a bathroom. So what we have here as far as the structure is concerned, a lot of flexibility about what we do with it. Do we keep it all? And it is interesting that we could cut it up and demolish, if you will, certain parts of it, particularly the east end of it, and still have a very good, safe, and virtually dry situation. The other comment I want to make is about trailers. I see no reason or even visualize anybody bringing a trailer onto that property. Most kayaks and canoes, when they're transported by road, are up on the roof of vehicles, which is fine. That can be done here. We can say no trailers, period. And certainly I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, I'd like to open it up to Don and Kurt to see if they have any comments or questions at this point.
Let me ask Jeff a question, if I may. Jeff, looking at the existing town-owned, the old town-owned parcel, it appears there's a stormwater management. Sorry. It appears there's a stormwater management structure on the western part. How much, and I have a sense that most of that terrain is sort of concave. How much of that roughly triangular piece is easily developed if we wanted to put in picnic tables and trees and that sort of thing? And how much do we need to reserve for the stormwater?
I think one of the things is, in terms of if the building was demolished, for example, that you would potentially have an opportunity to do more on in that area that you're talking about, Don, to kind of balance off the cuts and fills. You know, looking at it holistically, you may be able to do more, but most of that land over there is made land, really based because of the embankment that was required to put the new bridge in. So, you know, that's it kind of rises from left to right, but there's not a lot of wet areas, or, you know, I think it would be classified as made land by a soil scientist. You're right, on the west side, there is another brook that intersects, you know, and there's a culvert under there that goes, I'm not sure if that's Nod Brook. I always still not clear on names here in town in terms of the brooks, but go ahead.
So most of that we can think of as a blank palette.
I would say so, yeah. But I think, you know, you got to think of it now as opposed to thinking of it later as a second project, because I think it might be looked upon more favorably as a holistic project if you were going to do something over there. But yeah, I do think you could develop that in some way, shape, or form.
The town is looking at a bunch of things right now for downtown, including public restrooms, whether performing arts, historical society, or other area. And I would have for economic development reasons and the fact that it costs money for the town to maintain, if we go to public restrooms, rather than have more than one, I would lean toward making it more in town than here, not only for practicality, but we don't want people to stop here. We want to get them into town to develop our businesses and not have multiple locations. I don't know whatever is done, what the cost for flood insurance for the town would be. It's one thing we haven't discussed. And if Alan Needham has his wish and it becomes a vibrant, very busy area, we might consider dredging the river on each side of the bridge, so when the kids jump off, it becomes a swimming hole rather than the dangerous thing it is now. So, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. We got another comment here.
Elizabeth Burt, B-U-R-T, 12 Woods Lane. Woods Lane. Yeah, I'm the chair of the beautification committee, and we did we did submit some ideas to you, but I see sort of a competition between two ideas of turning into a vibrant, active area with places for kids to play and a quiet, restful place for people to enjoy nature. So I would really like to warn against, if we want to go with the nature, which we definitely do, with a place to enjoy nature, to make sure we don't look at that extra triangle up there and say, oh, we could put a playground there, we could put a concession stand there, we could put a rental place for boats. Then you're going to completely undermine the idea of turning this into a nature area where people can watch birds coming in, herons by the side of the water, and so on. We definitely support the idea of kayaks and canoes going in. And the other thing that we were worried about would be any paving in the area, which would create more runoff down into the river, to make any kind of paving, paths or leading into the building, permeable, so that water can flow through it rather than a macadam or tar surface. That's all.
Any other questions or comments or suggestions, ideas? We're open to anything today. Anything from Ferg or Don at this point? I'll do one last call for comments before we take a motion. Like I said, this is the very first time we're hearing public comment on that. We have been getting emails. Keep them coming. Let us know if you heard something tonight, something comes to you tomorrow, let us know. If you are not signed up for town notifications of meetings, the first committee that is looking this is the Open Space Committee, so you can sign up to get notifications of when our meetings are, when there are opportunities for you to speak. Those will not be your only opportunities. Any Board of Selectmen meeting, we're happy to hear from you. You can give me a call, 860-658-3230. I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one, and we'll have more meetings as well. So this is just the very first part of this. Yeah.
I just have a question as far as drawings of the property. Is that something that's accessible to people, like a site plan to scale, things like that, so
We can put up what we have. We don't have everything yet. We're just in the process of evaluating. Jeff, can you put that on the Open Space Committee website, this presentation?
Yeah, we don't have surveys available. We don't have an exact survey, a boundary survey. We have topo, we have GIS topo information that we could provide to you to scale, if you want that, with the ortho photos in the back, or however you want it. We do have a GIS system up and running. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you go to the town website, you can play with it yourself, and then tell me what you want, and we'll try to provide it.
Okay, and then the Meadows master plan you said is in the works, so that means that we can't access that yet, or are parts and pieces available?
Yeah, it's not on the website. We did have a iteration back, I think, in November that was available. I'm trying to remember if it was up on the website or not. Hiram, was that up? That Simsbury master plan, did we put that up on the web?
It's on the planning.
It is, okay. We do have an update that will probably be releasing very shortly. There is a meeting on that on the 25th, if you're interested. It's, again, I'm not sure when we're going to get to the end game, so to speak, but we are having meetings on it.
Jeff, we can put the information on the Simsbury Meadows plan on the Open Space website too.
Yes.
So that you can find that too on the town website. But if you can't find it, give me a call. We'll get it to you.
All right, I'm just interested.
All right, one last time. Any last comments before we call it an evening? All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. Thank you.